I think you got insurance coverage. Let us know it's cheap, but you're not getting that check. That's chronic. You need to go get that check. What's the banana? I'll just.
Phone ring, wake me up, okay?
Alright. Like ring or long guard ring. Cause I ain't gonna be up all night. Nigga be blanking and be waking up. It'd be 4 o'clock. Why the fuck I stayed up to 4 o'clock?
Like the Camry?
Oh, for shizzle. Been a camera boy since '94. You see, the '90s are my jam.
Well, with these amazing deals, maybe it's time for a change.
The new ones are fly.
Things like navigation and JBL audio make them even flyer.
Oop, there it is.
Yes, it is.
Get amazing deals on the #1 selling car in America during the Camry One event. Get $2,000 customer cash, or qualified buyers get 0% APR financing for 72 months, plus a $500 subvention bonus on a new 2017 Camry. 24. Let's go places.
When you look back over human history, it's fair to say we've made some pretty... But what have we done recently? It might seem like over the last several years we haven't really made any huge leaps, but don't be fooled. In fact, in the last few years, science has uncovered a range of finds that could have significant importance when it comes to understanding the world around us and improving our quality of life. That's the good stuff. For many of us, mosquitoes are just a nuisance. Malaria and the spreading West Nile and viruses, they are a primary concern. So what makes some people more attractive to mosquitoes than others? In addition to clothing and carbon dioxide, researchers have found that blood type plays a huge role. Specifically, most humans release a secretion that informs mosquitoes what type of blood you have. And it turns out people with type O are far more likely to get bit than people with type A or B blood. That stinks. Interested in knowing when the Grim Reaper will be making a visit? Let's look keyword then. Researchers looked at thousands of people between the ages of 57 and 75 that took a smell with things like peppermint, fish, and flowers. 5 years later, they returned and found that 58% of those with trouble smelling were dead, while only 10% who had taste and smell tests had passed away. The lesson here, the loss of smell may be a strong indicator that your overall health is in decline. The other white meat. Love bacon but hate all the health side effects linked to it? Researchers at Oregon State University reportedly uncovered a seaweed called dulse that is packed full of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants and smells and tastes just like bacon when you try it. No, it's not like soy that needs added flavor. Dulse is naturally salty and has a strong natural bacon flavor. Okay, so this discovery might not be earth-shattering, but it's likely to get more than a few people excited. Every room matters. Since it became highly publicized in the 1980s, HIV and AIDS have been a major target for scientists looking to find a cure. While there have been major advancements in drugs to slow the damage caused by the disease, an actual vaccine is always seen over the reach. Recently, scientists discovered an antibody which successfully blocks the HIV virus from infecting healthy cells. There is still much more research and testing to do, but this discovery does give hope to millions of people around the world. Beetle GPS. There's a lot we can learn from the animals and insects around us. Enter the dung beetle. Yes, this little guy rolls up balls of poop for a living, but he travels in a straight line and always seems to know exactly where he's going. How? Researchers used to think they use the sun and moon, but it turns out these particular beetles use the Milky Way. Block their line of sight to the Milky Way, and the beetles roam around with no sense of direction. Drown those sorrows. It turns out that humans aren't that different than fruit flies. What do we mean? Researchers did a study with the flies to assess mating and food consumption. In an interesting and kind of funny result, they found that male fruit flies who were rejected by females drank 4 times more alcohol than the male flies who had gotten lucky. While it is amusing to think that fruit flies were drowning their sorrows after striking out, science suggests turning to alcohol is all down to the chemical in the brain, whose level is directly controlled by activities like sex. Velocichickens. The dinosaurs are extinct, but that hasn't stopped movies like Jurassic Park from piquing their interest. In fact, even scientists are playing around with the whole dinosaur theme. Researchers in the US, in trying to figure out how beaks evolved in birds, actually produced a chicken embryo with a snout and palate similar to a velociraptor. This was accomplished by playing around with the genes of the animal. While scientists say they have no intention of creating a bunch of dino chickens, we should probably keep an eye out for any companies buying up Caribbean islands. Life after death. They say when your heart and brain activity stops, you are dead. It turns out that is not 100% true. Research with animals has shown that various genes throughout the body are at work up to 48 hours after death occurs. In fact, many genes are believed to start acting only after death occurs. So what? Well, if it involves you, the bad news is you'll still be dead. The good news is that authorities can better determine the time of death, which is important if a crime was involved. Potential game changer. If you've watched cable news at all over the last few years, you know they love showing that our overuse of antibiotics is creating resistance and superbugs that will wipe us out. Well, maybe not yet. You see, scientists have recently discovered a new antibiotic called Teixobactin, and it could be a massive game changer. In addition to being the first new antibiotic in 30 years, this new drug is believed to be a key to developing a whole new range of antibiotics. Longer life. It doesn't matter what period of human history you look at, we have always been obsessed with finding the fountain of youth. Researchers at the University of Bern in Switzerland may have taken us one big step closer to extending our lives. Last year, scientists were able to activate a gene which hunted down and destroyed unhealthy cells in flies. The result was the flies lived 50% longer than they normally should have. According to scientists, this gene exists in humans and could potentially be used to slow down tissue and neural degeneration that naturally happens as we age. Do any of these advancements excite you? Give us a thumbs up for science, because science is just, well, awesome. Don't forget to subscribe to The Richest for incredible information daily. Thanks for watching. But before social media came around, many of us were blissfully ignorant of just how rampant it was. Here are 10 violent crimes that were posted on social media. Bryce Williams. On August 26, 2015, reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward were filming an interview for their morning program on WDBJ in Roanoke, Virginia, when a fired employee named Bryce Williams opened fire. Williams, whose real name was Vester Flanagan, fired at least 8 bullets at Parker and Ward, killing them on live television. But Williams was also recording the murders from his point of view and proceeded to post the video on Facebook and Twitter. He was tracked down hours later, but died of complications stemming from a car pursuit. Naomi Anderson. On July 15, 2011, 23-year-old Naomi Anderson was found guilty of animal cruelty after she decapitated the host with a steak knife and posted the video on Facebook. What made the video even more gruesome was the fact that the knife took nearly 40 seconds to die. Her punishment was 180 hours of community service, 18 months of probation, and she was forced to keep away from animals for 2 years. David Kalick. In November 2014, 33-year-old David Kalick posted photos of his dead girlfriend on a 4chan message board. He confessed to murdering her in the post, stating that strangling someone was harder to do in real life than in the movie. After being accused of faking the ordeal, Kalick told 4chan users to check the news and that he wanted to share the pictures before the police came and arrested him. Kalick eventually surrendered to police and is potentially facing life in prison. Larassi Abala. 25-year-old Larassi Abala was an ISIS sympathizer in France who killed a cop and his girlfriend in their home in Manuelville. Abala broadcasted the killings on Facebook Live. The couple had a 3-year-old son, and Abala talked to his viewers, saying that he didn't know what he wanted to do with the boy. Before he could do further harm, the SWAT team raided the home and killed Abala, and managed to rescue the toddler from the hostage situation. Maxwell Marion Morton. In February of 2015, Maxwell Marion Morton shot his classmate Ryan Mangan in the face, killing him. Instead of calling the cops, Morton took a selfie with Mangan's body in the background and sent it to his friend on Snapchat. His friend took a quick screenshot and showed it to police. Morton confessed to the crime and was charged with first-degree murder. Kenneth Allen Allen. 45-year-old Kenneth Allen Allen and his 43-year-old girlfriend Jennifer Strike Spears had apparently been discussing a suicide pact for months. They had agreed to stab each other to death in their Texas home, but Strike Spears chickened out and Amex decided to go ahead and finish the job. After fatally stabbing her, he took a picture of her mutilated body and posted it to her Facebook page. It lingered on the social media site for 36 hours before it was removed. Rashad Dahim and Kaylin Bonia. In September 2014, in Saugus, Massachusetts, 21-year-old Rashad Dahim and 20-year-old Kaylin Bonia kidnapped a 16-year-old girl, took her into the woods, and brutally assaulted her. There was a third person present who recorded the attack and distributed it on Snapchat. One of the recipients was horrified to see the 16-year-old naked and passed out from intoxication, and made sure to take screenshots to show police. The 3 participants were arrested and found guilty of assault with intent to rape, kidnapping, and battery. Derek Medina. In August of 2013, Derek Medina shot and killed his wife and then posted a photo of her dead body on Facebook. In the social media post, he confessed to killing his wife, but then retracted the confession after talking to his lawyer. According to Medina, his wife was an avid drug user who abused her husband and worshipped the devil, and Medina shot her in self-defense. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Teenage girls. In England, 2 girls aged 13 and 14 committed a brutal murder and then proudly sent photos on Snapchat to their friends. The girls had befriended 39-year-old Angela Wrightson and then beat and killed her with a television set, coffee table, and a shovel. They left Wrightson's home at 11 p.m. and returned a few hours later to finish the job and ensure that Wrightson was dead. After the deed was done, the girls called police and innocently asked for a ride home. Once the Snapchat images surfaced, the girls were found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Brazilian tweet. In May of 2016, a 16-year-old Brazilian teen went over to her boyfriend's house in Rio de Janeiro. At the time, which was 1 a.m., the couple were alone. However, she woke up hours later, naked in a different house, surrounded by 30 men, some armed, who had participated in raping her. Days later, 2 of the attackers tweeted nude photos of her, as well as a 40-second video from the horrific night. The police have managed to find a few of the men involved, but a search is still ongoing for the rest of them. Stay safe and be kind to one another. Thank you for watching.
Americans are buying more and more of everything online, and so many businesses rely on the United States Postal Service to get it there. That's why we make more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country. The United States Postal Service. Priority youth.
Fucking Alabama.
If you could take one guy to an island with you and you knew you'd be safe because he was the best man, he was going to keep you happy, if it was between me and your father, who would you take?
My daddy.
I think you're wrong about that. Hello, this is Lee. What happened to my brother?
So that's Lee Chandler.
I don't understand.
Which part of you got in trouble?
Well, I can't be his guardian.
Well, your brother provided for your nephew's upkeep. I think the idea was that you would relocate.
Relocate to where?
Well, if you
Here?
look, it was my impression that you'd spent a lot of time here.
Nice.
What up?
I'm just a bagger.
Follow me on my YouTube page, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
If you really
KingDal225's, 3 eyes on YouTube.
You're right.
Where are we going, to the orphanage? Shut up.
Get my subscribers up, man. Show me some love.
Whatever you decide, he can always stay with us if he wants to come up weekends.
Do you want to be his guardian?
Well,
He doesn't want to be my guardian, for Christ's sake.
That's what we're trying to lose some kids at this point.
Hello?
Hello, Lee? I just want to call and say I'm sorry. How's Patrick doing?
He doesn't really open up with me.
Do you actually have sex with these girls?
Strictly basement business.
What does that mean?
It means I'm working on it.
You don't want to be my guardian? That's fine with me.
Not that. It's just the logistics.
All my friends are here. I got 2 girlfriends, and I'm in a band. You're a janitor in Quincy. What the hell do you care where you live?
I've said a lot of terrible things to you. My heart was broken, and I know yours is broken too.
No, you don't understand. There's nothing there.
Not true.
There's something wrong with me.
Do you want me to call your friends? What do you want me to do? I'm not gonna bother you. I'm gonna just sit here until you calm down.
All right, I'm calming it. Would you please just go away?
No.
It's not a shot.
Come on, pull it up.
It's not a shot.
We average one sexual thought every can be diverted.
You're a superstar. Tony Robbins.
He suppresses people's natural desires. Strike up the band.
Kind, fine, pretty damn amazing.
Oh, Pete, he's not gay.
Call you Mark?
You're lucky that you date dudes.
No, I'm not. I'm actually dead serious about that.
You ladies are ready. Let's play a little basketball.
Oh, really?
Good shot to the nuts, also dings melon.
They're like little pilots.
We found a brain tumor up against your pituitary gland. The pressure it's applied is watching normal male development. Basically, you've never gone through puberty.
Got the penis of Stephen Hawking at the moment.
I don't want to split hairs, but Stephen Hawking could actually get an erection.
Breakfast is ready.
So how's puberty at 30 going? He's got the Sunday Times rolled up in there.
You gotta help me. I'm horny, I'm moody, and I think I'm going nuts.
Your puberty is happening at an accelerated speed.
Pardon the interruption, but do you drive a silver Prius? In session! My office, now!
We have 25 minutes. Hey, Pete, wanna go over? Would you mind if I pop those on YouTube?
I have to take a rain check. People put their lives aside in pursuit of their next orgasm. Orgasm.
I don't know, you just seem different. Pete, you've been avoiding me. Come here.
Uh-oh. Just realized I'm late and I gotta go.
You'll never get it!
You can act out, baby.
I hate you, I wish I was never even born!
I've been waiting 15 years for him to do that.
I know you believe that other couples are truly happy, but the truth is, they aren't. Nobody's happy. Unless they're single. Miserable, Charlie, is what people are meant to be. You mind if I smoke?
Really? Well, why do I feel like my head is gonna explode in a hurricane of generic questions?
Where are you from? Where do you work? Where did you go to school?
You know, the am I better than you questions.
Oh, yeah, well, asking this is how you know you're a New Yorker.
Oh, that was fun.
See? She's fine. So let's go dress up like a little box. Sniff each other's panties.
I have way more sex single than I ever had married.
Really?
Yes.
5 orgasms. 5 orgasms.
Hey, this guy. You alright? Hey, maybe we should get her here, huh?
I really like you. I do.
Quit my job today.
We do what? Oh, man, you don't know this chick. Oh, come on, man. I'm happy. Leave me alone.
Look, Charlie, just be nice to these women.
You look good. Can I buy you a drink? Hey. Oh, hey. Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Oh yeah, it's catchy like a clap.
The knowledge is never without a price.
Sounds of tyranny, injustice, and despair. They are the few, the proud, the Marines.
To be honest, I'm surprised there haven't been more symptoms.
Would loss of sight in one eye be a symptom?
Possibly.
And temporary paralysis?
Definitely.
Might have been some symptoms before today.
Why wouldn't you get those checked out?
He sent me to Jenny Craig.
Oh my god, Dad, temporary paralysis?
I thought it was a weight thing.
Seems like you guys have some stuff to work out.
What is with you, Dad? She fired me. I didn't know you were working for me.
Yeah, you should really call more.
What's this? Ice cream pretzel. My mom's favorite thing.
Hey, how about heart attacks? Is that one of her favorite things too?
You have a problem with me.
Why does your mom's nurse hate you?
He's married to Gwen.
Gwen, you're Gwen.
Wow, you look beautiful. But I don't feel anything for her anymore, okay? You're an amazing looking guy. I mean, she's just a baby, for God's sake.
Oh.
No, that's not what I meant.
Put your dreams away for now. How's Rebecca?
She's good.
Mom said things haven't been great. Is that why you're not going to get married?
Hi.
Is this a dream?
No.
I like Rebecca. She's pushy.
Yeah.
Men need to be pushed.
What are you doing?
I agreed to divorce. I didn't need some strange man hanging around my daughters.
Get down. What is it? John, get down. Just at the window. Oh my God, that doesn't work. What? Why does it work? Don't talk. It's not that wrong. My CD's coming. It's coming.
Lost in my mind. Lost in my mind. Oh, I get lost in my mind.
Honestly, with everything you've been going through, I can't even tell if you want to have a baby at all.
Sorry. We're having twins. And you're terrified.
Is she okay? Crying's actually like good for kids' lungs. It makes them strong or something.
Well, I don't think that's true.
How'd you get Quinn to stop crying?
I didn't. John did it.
Oh.
You hungry?
Starving.
Yeah, let's eat.
Okay, great.
Okay, kiddo. That's bedtime for you. Are you kidding me?
Authoritarian societies tend to be tyrannical, but there are some authoritarian societies that have gone to extreme lengths to control every aspect of life within their borders. In North Korea's case, this means brainwashing and sheer insanity. These are 10 things that North Koreans actually believe. North Korean Central TV is always claiming that the country is creating new and innovative indigenous technologies. Of course, these declarations cause a great deal of speculation, considering that North Korea is internationally renowned for their relative backwardness and isolation. The phone that North Korea claims to have invented was called the Pyongyang Touch, and it turned out to be a total flop. Not to mention, it wasn't an indigenous technology at all. The Pyongyang Touch was proven to be a cheap ripoff of another smartphone model that was manufactured in China. Kim Jong-il was famous for a number of apparent accomplishments, but one of his many great achievements was his supposed cure for dwarfism. While Westerners realized that this claim is ridiculous, North Koreans found it entirely believable. They've accepted the belief that Kim Jong-il discovered a miracle drug that would rid short genes from the population of North Korea. Today, we know that at least a third of North Koreans suffer from stunted growth. This is largely due to malnourishment, and as a result, the average height of North Koreans is significantly less than that of South Koreans. North Koreans have been told that Kim Jong-il was one of the most important leaders in all of human history. Those that live in the country have been convinced that they have the highest quality of life and that they only have Kim Jong-il to thank for it. This, of course, is untrue, considering that the country is lagging behind the rest of the world by nearly every economic and technological metric. Propagandists have spread the idea that Kim Jong-il's birth was a magical event. According to legend, he was born on their holiest mountain, Mount Baekdu. North Korean reports even claim that the season changed from winter to spring and a new star was born as soon as he came into the world. However, Soviet records that were released after the fall of the Berlin Wall show that he was actually born in a refugee camp in Vyatskoye, Siberia. North Korea did surprisingly well at the 2012 Olympics, placing 20th among 205 different countries. However, the country did not leave with a clean slate. North Korean gold medalist Om Chol claimed that Kim Jong-il's spirit helped him lift 3 times his body weight during the competition. This declaration was mocked in the Western media, but it cannot be denied that the image of Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il can be a very powerful inspiration to many North Koreans. Because of the country's food crisis, many North Koreans are starving. In order to combat this national famine, the government of North Korea has encouraged its people to substitute meals with sawdust and to scavenge what food they can from the countryside. These edicts are often accompanied with explanations that sawdust isn't harmful. Unsurprisingly, it has been estimated that 1/3 of the population of North Korea is malnourished. The state-issued biography given to the North Korean people makes very wild claims about Kim Jong-il's bodily functions, or lack thereof. According to the biography, Kim Jong-il never urinated or defecated. It is difficult to understand why they would make such a bizarre claim, but it is supposed to reassert the belief that he was a supernatural being. Either way, this obviously ridiculous myth was ridiculed in the now infamous movie, The Interview. As most people know, hamburgers are classic American fare. The North Korean people, however, have been told differently. According to the North Korean belief, Kim Jong-il wanted to efficiently feed university students, so he invented a brand new sandwich. He gave it the catchy name, Double Bread with Meat. While we do not know the actual origin of the hamburger, we do know that it was created in the West far before Kim Jong-il's reign. According to North Korean storybooks, Kim Jong-un could drive as a small toddler. Supposedly, he learned how to drive behind the controls of a military tank. While this claim is preposterous, it is widely believed by the North Korean people. North Korean sources also claim that their current leader wanted voting rights when he was only 9. This story is also likely false. North Korea has been known for rewriting history, but one of their most bizarre rewrites has to do with the Korean War. Their claim is that the war was started by the U.S., and is one of the most serious changes to North Korean textbooks. The North Korean explanation for the war is that the U.S. occupied South Korea after the Second World War. From there, the Western countries supposedly invaded the North. It is reported that Kim Il-sung saved the country from being taken over by Western forces. The North Koreans believe that the U.S. troops still occupy South Korea and that they will shoot any North Koreans that attempt to cross the DMZ. For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out our other lists. And thanks for watching, and thanks for learning.
There are many fascinating countries around the world, although one of the most bizarre has to be Korea, simply because we hardly know anything about it. In this video, we'll check out 10 of the craziest things you probably didn't know about the also secretive North Korea. Number 10. Marijuana is legal. There's no taboo around smoking pot in North Korea. Many locals know the drug and smoke it regularly. Although the use and distribution of hard drugs like crystal meth is condemned by death penalty, marijuana is reportedly neither classified as illegal nor in any way policed. In North Korea, weed is not even considered a drug. As a result, it's the discerning North Korean gentleman's roll-up of choice. Number 9. Government decides your haircut. North Korea has 28 sanctioned haircuts. Women are allowed to choose one of 18 styles. Married women are instructed to keep their hair short, while single ladies are allowed to let loose with longer, curlier locks. Men are prohibited from growing their hair longer than 5 centimeters, 2 inches, while older men can get away with up to 7 centimeters, or 3 inches. Number 8. Ghost City. There's a ghost city on the border to encourage South Koreans to enter. According to the Korean government, the village of Kijangdong, located in the north half of the Korean demilitarized zone, contains a 200-family collective farm, serviced by a childcare center, kindergarten, schools, and a hospital. However, observations from the south suggest that it's actually a ghost town, created to encourage South Korean defection. Until 2004, massive loudspeakers mounted on several of the buildings continuously delivered North Korea propaganda broadcasts in great detail and urging disgruntled South Koreans to cross the border. Number 7. No free time. North Korea insists on a 6-day work week with another day of enforced volunteer work, which ensures the average citizen has virtually no free time. It seems that everyone is automatically given a job by the government after high school and stuck with that job for life. However, the system is breaking down, and North Koreans now have to earn money of their own by bribing their factory bosses, for example, to let them go to work in markets. Number 6. Limited rights. Human rights in North Korea are severely limited. Despite numerous rights being de jure guaranteed by the country's constitution, in practice, there is no de facto right to free speech, and the only radio, television, music and news providers that are deemed legal are those operated by the government. Also, if one person violates a law or is sent to a prison camp, it affects their whole family. Grandparents, parents and children of the violator are sent to work with them. Number 5. Social categories. There are 51 social categories ranked by their loyalty to the regime, based on political, social and economic background for direct ancestors, as well as behavior by relatives. The Songbun, a North Korean system of ascribed status, is used to determine whether an individual is trusted with responsibility, given opportunities within North Korea, or even receives adequate food. Songbun affects access to educational and employment opportunities, and particularly whether a person is eligible to join North Korea's ruling party. Number 4. Tallest building. For 20 years, the world's tallest hotel was a 105-story empty pyramid in Pyongyang. With 105 floors, the Ryongyong Hotel was designed to be the world's tallest hotel at the end of the 80s, but the construction was halted in 1992 as the country entered a period of economic crisis after the fall of the Soviet Union. A Japanese newspaper estimated the cost of the hotel at $750 million, which is 2% of North Korea's GDP. For over a decade, the unfurnished building sat vacant and without windows, appearing as a massive concrete shell. Number 3. Largest military in the world. Believe it or not, North Korea has the largest military in the world, including active, reserve and parliamentary, with 7.7 million servicemen and women. To give you an idea of just how big that is, the US has an estimated 1.5 million active military personnel. And with the nation celebrating its first successful test of a submarine-launched missile, the country's leader, Kim Jong-un, says the US mainland is now within striking range of its nuclear weapons. Number 2. It's year 105 in North Korea. While we're in the year 2016, the North Koreans are still living in the year of 105. Ever since 1997, people in North Korea have been using the so-called Juche calendar, according to which this year's has to be the 104th one. The calendar was first introduced 3 years after Kim Il-sung's son's death. The calendar's numbering system uses son's birth date as year 1. This means that North Koreans see 1912 as the Juche 1. Number 1. Concentration camps. Goryeo concentration camp in North Korea currently holds 50,000 men, women and children who suffer a level of slavery, torture and experimentation comparable to the Holocaust. One ex-guard who defected from North Korea guessed that about 2,000 people die of malnutrition each year in the concentration camp, but that the number of inmates stays constant at 50,000 thanks to an equal number of incoming prisoners.
I had to get rid of this machine gun dude. He was whack.
After this.
Everything you're pretty good at now, you were once pretty bad at. It's the same for credit. Because credit isn't just a score, it's a skill. Go to Experian.com and start getting better at credit today.
Some people have greatness thrust upon them, even
even the most unlikely people. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we will explore the comic book origins of Nova. As with most comic book characters, there are often reimaginings and different versions to a character's past. We've chosen to primarily follow the storyline which unfolded in 1976's Nova number 1, which was expanded upon in 1993's New Warriors number 42 and 2013's Nova volume 5, numbers 1 to 3. The hero known as Nova wears a special uniform, which gives him access to an energy source called the Nova Force. This imbues him with a range of powers, including super strength, flight, speed, and the ability to release energy balls. All in all, it's a pretty handy little suit to have around. Audiences first met Nova in 1976 in his civilian identity of Richard Ryder, a high school student with an inferiority complex. The object of considerable bullying, Rich was constantly being told to get himself some confidence, but that was easier said than done. Fortunately for Rich, things were about to change. A spaceship approaching Earth contained a being of incredible power known as Nova Prime. He revealed that his homeworld of Xandar had been destroyed by an evil monster called Zor. Nova Prime had been mortally injured in his unsuccessful fight against Zor. With only moments to live, he randomly directed a beam of incredible energy towards the Earth, hoping to find a successor in his fight against Zor. That beam happened to strike Rich Ryder, knocking him into a coma. Though he was unresponsive to the world around him, Rich's mind had established a link with that of Nova Prime. The alien told Rich that he was passing on to him his invincible Nova powers, and that Rich must use them to fight Zor and anyone else who seeks to do evil. When Nova Prime bequeathed his powers to Rich, the boy awoke from his coma, releasing a force beam of massive energy as he did so. Although he was initially unsure whether his conversation with Nova Prime had been a dream, he soon discovered that it was not. When Zor arrived on Earth to begin a new destructive rampage, Rich donned his Nova suit and moved to battle. He knew an inexperienced Rich managed to get Zor helped him well when Zor suddenly disappeared. Apparently, Nova Prime had enough power left to bring Zor aboard his ship and destroy the monster of Nova himself. With his new powers, Rich dedicated himself to fight evil in all of its forms, taking the name Nova for his constant identity. In subsequent years, Rich found that Nova Prime was actually one of the main members of an elite police force known as the Nova Corps. He eventually came into contact with Garvin Saul, another surviving member of the Nova Corps who had somehow absorbed all the powers of Nova Corps. Rich and Saul were merged into one body, which they then used to help recreate the world of Xandar, which Zor had destroyed. In this recreated Xandar, Rich was chosen to be the new Nova Prime. In 2011, a new Earthling took on the mantle of Nova, and his origin was revealed in 2013. Sam Alexander was a 15-year-old stuck in carefree Arizona, and ashamed of his alcoholic father. What Sam didn't know is that before his birth, his father Jesse had also been a member of the Nova Corps. When his former colleagues, Rocket Raccoon and Gamora, showed up, they transferred to Sam the uniform and powers of Nova, and called upon him to help the new hero from annihilation. Sam agreed, of course, because it was better than being bored to death at school, right? Both Rich Ryder and Sam Alexander come from a long line of Marvel heroes who started off as outsider teenagers. Being gifted with the Nova powers has certainly made a big difference in their lives, and provided fans with plenty of awesome action and outlandish adventures as well.
I did it! Whoa, I rock!
Are you a fan of the cosmic superhero Nova? For more comic book origins, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com. Doesn't have any superpowers. That doesn't mean she's not powerful.
Including Amanda.
I'm just thinking we have all sorts of other players.
You mean those so-called superheroes?
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we will explore the origins of Suicide Squad's Amanda Waller. We've got business, Waller. As with most comic book characters, there are often reimaginings and different versions to a character's past. We've chosen to primarily follow the storyline which unfolded in 1987's Secret Origins number 14, which was expanded upon in 2011's Suicide Squad number 0 and 2012's Team 7 number 0. The Wall, as Amanda Waller is frequently called, doesn't possess metahuman powers. What she does possess is steely, ruthless determination and a willingness to do anything necessary to achieve her desired end. If that means that your lives get sacrificed in the process, well, so be it. Greater good, am I right?
I heard we lost past tape.
Yes, ma'am. You'll have my full report by 0800.
Right, that'll be all.
Waller first appeared in 1986 as an integral part of DC's original series. A government official with military ties, she put together the second iteration of the Suicide Squad.
I'm Amanda Waller. I'm here to indoctrinate new convicts into our special group.
Codenamed Task Force X, this group was made up of a mixture of heroes and villains, with the latter tending to outnumber the former. The villains were given the opportunity to have their sentences commuted after their time with the squad, and to ensure that they didn't try any further. Members of the villains were decades of she became the campaign manager for an idealistic congressional candidate, and she put him in office.
I'm sorry, Miss Waller, no one's allowed.
Mr. President, the whole country's in a state of panic, and they're ready to take you out behind a barn and...
After his successful election, Waller served as his aide. She came upon a lab about the old Suicide Squad, and she realized that this was something that could be useful to the current administration. A covert team that could take on sensitive and dangerous missions, and thus Waller gave birth to the new Suicide Squad. In her original incarnation, Amanda Waller was a physically inferior woman, and one who took no gruff from anyone. When the New 52 project was adopted, readers were introduced to a Waller that was physically very different. Not a great deal is known about the new Waller's early history, but she did come to the job from a different background. When metahumans first started appearing in the new DC universe, the government put together a special unit called Team 7. Amanda Waller was an NSA analyst working with the Army when she was recruited to be part of this new team. Something happened during her time with Team 7 that soured Waller on her activities. She went AWOL but was found in Malaysia by an old friend and colleague named Duran. Duran needed help stopping a villain by the name of Regulus, whom they thought was going to blow up a nearby village. In fact, Regulus was actually detonating a bomb that was intended to create metahumans that used to control himself. Instead, it caused horrible deformities and mutations among those on the planet, including Duran. Waller had no choice but to shoot her friends to put him out of his misery. After witnessing this, Waller approached the government with the idea of forming the Suicide Squad, essentially so that good people like her friend Duran wouldn't have to be sacrificed anymore.
Want to assemble a task force of the most dangerous people on the planet who we think can do some good.
They're bad guys.
Exactly.
Amanda Waller has proven to be a very popular character, despite the fact that she's often as much of an antagonist as superhero as an ally. The group of this make her someone who really can't be trusted, and she has often been an enemy of the metahumans. Yet, she's still a fascinating character, one who has made memorable appearances outside of the comic book pages.
I'm done with waiting. Somebody's got to do something.
Are you a fan of the manipulative Amanda Waller? For more awe-inspiring comic book origins, be sure to subscribe.
We'll talk more later.
She is Batman's deadliest lover. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we will explore the comic book origins of Talia al Ghul.
My name is Talia, and I too have business with the Society of Shadows.
As with most comic book characters, there are often reimaginings and different versions to a character's past. We have chosen to follow the original storyline which unfolded in 1971 with Detective Comics number 411, and Batman number 232, which was all expanded upon in 1987's Son of the Demon. As previously mentioned, Batman and Talia have developed a complicated relationship over the years, as she is both a love interest but also the daughter of one of his greatest enemies. In her first appearance, she actually assumes a damsel in distress role, as she is being held captive by the sinister Dr. Dark, with 2 R's.
I can take care of myself, thank you.
So I see.
Still, the gesture is appreciated.
While pursuing Dark, Batman is ambushed and overwhelmed by members of the League of Assassins. He awakens unmasked, held prisoner in a dungeon alongside a woman, reveals herself to be Talia, the daughter of the mysterious Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul if you want to be a dick about it.
Father's name was pronounced Raish, not Raz. A common mistake.
Whatever. Okay. Placed in an arena, Batman fights and defeats a bull before rescuing Talia, who had been tied to a post. Batman confronts Dark, who attacks him with gas and a knife. Before Dark can finish the job, however, he is shot by Talia and killed by a passing train. Womp womp. If the first meeting between Batman and Talia set the tone for their love affair, the second time the pair encountered each other introduced their biggest obstacle, Talia's father.
Your father has much to answer for.
I am truly sorry, beloved.
What are you doing? Protecting everything. Your security's built in, not bolted on. Protecting data, not just the perimeter. Everything is more secure.
Systems open to all.
The Bear Corporation has successfully bid $66 billion to take over chemical giant Monsanto. Monsanto, as most of you know, is the creator, distributor of the weed killer known as Roundup, which recent studies have shown is causing cancer among many, many other illnesses in people in the United States due to its widespread use. Bayer and Monsanto merger would create possibly the second largest criminal empire in the United States. The second only because the DuPont-Dow merger could still happen, and that would be the largest. But Bayer and Monsanto, they've got plenty of skeletons in both of their closets. With Monsanto, as I just mentioned, their Roundup product, the #1 big blockbuster that's used by farmers all over the country, is literally causing people to get illnesses that can kill them. Not only is it for cancer, it has been linked to an increase in ADD and ADHD diagnoses due to the way that it affects brain modulation. It's been linked to birth defects. It's been linked to neurological diseases. There are at least 19 unique conditions that the glyphosate in Monsanto's Roundup has been linked to in recent years. Yet the company, Monsanto, in order to fight all this, they put together this little chemical task force that was given the appearance of being nonpartisan, but really it was actually funded and created by Monsanto with the express purpose of lying about the dangers of Roundup. So there's Monsanto for you, that criminal industry. What about Bayer? Well, we could start with the fact that Bayer was joining hand-to-hand with the Nazis during World War II, but let's go a little bit more recent. In the 1980s, Bayer Corporation produced a drug, it was a clotting agent for hemophiliacs called Factor VIII. Now, Factor VIII in the United States, it turns out we find it was contaminated with AIDS, HIV-positive blood that was used to make this clotting agent that was given to hemophiliacs. So hemophiliacs were contracting HIV because of the contaminated products of Bayer. So once the federal government finds out about this and says, hey, you can't just give people HIV, you have to pull this off the market, Bayer decides, okay, yeah, we'll stop using it. They ship it over to Africa. This HIV-tainted clotting agent, they send it over to Africa for hemophiliacs over there, knowing that it was deadly, knowing what it was going to do, to continue to give people this deadly virus without letting them know, even though the company was fully aware. That is a caliber of evil that I don't think we've seen since with corporate America, or any corporation. Bayer is obviously not an American corporation. But that is the kind of evil that Bayer is capable of. bring it back over stateside in recent years. Bear's birth control, Yaz, killing women. They knew about this. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of lawsuits against the company for this, but they still refused to pull it off the market or to even be honest with women. So that's Bayer. We have Monsanto with their deadly Roundup, and Bayer with their just deadly, evil mentality. And these two are about to become one. As I said, creating the second largest criminal enterprise in the United States, but they certainly take the first, number one spot when it comes to just being downright evil.
Disorder, Cliff, I wrote for a lot of reasons, but one of them is, I've been, as you know, you and I have been doing meetings together for 17 years on and off, and in there you learn all the political stories, you learn all the political backstories. Law and Disorder it's a thriller, it's a legal thriller, and what it does is it takes all those parts and it weaves into like the headlines, the news feed of the day, ties it into a story, but it's the same news feed we've always heard about. It's corporate America gone crazy. It is controlled by the oligarchs in the U.S. It has all those parts, but it's weaved into a thriller.
Yeah, well, and obviously they always say write about what you know. So obviously I could look at those things that were similarities. Nicholas Nicodemus, who has a bit of a name, a great sounding name like yours.
Actually, I'm Italian, but I'm Italian. It does sound true.
Make a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm like Donald Trump. I'm not politically correct. You know that. Okay, so let's try part two. This part I know. I'm a Flanagan lawyer from Florida, whole area, corporations, and anyone. That sounds a lot like you.
Well, the cases in there, Cliff, they're true. I mean, the cases that are talked about, they've been made into, as I say, a thriller with a murder involved. But it's impossible to write a novel and not have some parts of yourself involved. But actually, the main characters, though, Cliff, are really a composite of some of the best trial lawyers that I've worked with over the last 35 years. These aren't lawyers who handle the single all the cases. These are lawyers who handle the biggest mass tort cases, the biggest criminal defense cases in the country. And so that's kind of the composite of this Nicholas Nicodemus, and the rest of the characters are somewhat composites as well. But I think the main reason, the reason I think it's an unusual novel is that, you get to sit on a beach and read a story that hopefully keeps you entertained and it keeps the pages turning. But when you come away, you say, well, I really didn't know that about the codex. I really didn't know that about the pharmaceutical industry. I had no idea that the FDA was so dysfunctional. I had no idea that the EPA was so dysfunctional. So, or the justice system. I had no idea that it's been so packed with conservative right-wing judges for the last 30 years.
Seriously, I hope you didn't take it the wrong way. My only point was, you know this territory. I've worked with you. I've been on your political show. I've worked with you doing some work for the National Trial Lawyers, an organization you're the president of. When it comes to trial law, it comes to taking on big companies, when it comes to any political issue of the day, what's going on anywhere from Congress to policy, this is your area. And, let me compliment you for a second. I tend to like books that combine some of these various elements. They're thrillers, but if you love the political world and legal world, and so in a way, it reminds you that way of some of the things like what Tony Grisham's done, because you know when you're being in Mississippi, he's a guy that's a lawyer, and so he knows the world of politics, he knows the world of law, and so he knows what he's talking about. He brings in these characters that you might believe are larger than life, but then you see, when you go out and you live life as we have in this world, again, I think everybody's getting impatient right now with Donald Trump, you see that these types of characters, be they good or nefarious, they're out there, and that's what I find the beauty in this book also.
Yeah, it's just,
I think it makes it really fascinating.
Well, thank you. It's a series of 3 books. The idea is, listen, if any of those stories that were told in there, and by the way, they're all true except for the murder part. But if I were to call NBC or CBS today and I said, listen, I have a story about a drug that's killed 1,000 women last year, and I have the documents where they admit to killed 1,000 women with a defective drug, would you please do the story? And they would say, no, we can't do the story because our advertisers won't let us. That's propaganda media. And so propaganda media has overtaken corporate media. These stories that I'll be talking about in these books are all true. These are actually cases that I've handled and friends of mine have handled. And the truth is, when you read them, you go, my God, that can't be true. Well, they are true. And the problem is corporate media will not tell them because you have some...
It's like I'm deep in the rugged wilderness, and I haven't seen a soul in weeks. It could be extremely tough to survive way out here.
Hey, love your show.
Thanks.
Right now, qualified buyers get 0% APR for 60 months plus $2,000 special edition cash on a new 2016 special edition Tundra for a total savings over $6,300. Toyota trucks, a heritage built on adventure. Toyota, let's go places.
Hey you guys, it's your girl T. So I want to come on here and talk about the whole Amina Butterfly situation. So once again, our favorite people from Love and Hip Hop New York are back on the blog. So what's going down is that a bunch of people started hitting me up on Twitter yesterday, and I swore up and down it was a joke, but it's not. It has been confirmed by Amina Butterfly herself that she is writing a tell-all book called The Other Woman, okay? So when she announced this on Instagram and on Twitter, a lot of folks had different opinions. Some people were supportive of her. Other people were going in on her saying, why are you so proud to be a side chick? This makes no sense. Why the hell are you writing a book? So the whole situation is crazy. I want you guys to go ahead and try some of these comments, what folks have to say. Check this out. I'm going to come back with the rest of my commentary.
Hey guys, I'm Phil Molina, and this is a breakdown of Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Freaking Bastards. And holy crap, I told you it was going to be insane, did I not? This was one of the biggest productions Game of Thrones has ever done, like ever. Probably is the biggest, actually. So I'm going to break this down for you and point out all kinds of stuff that made this one of the best, most emotionally destructive Game of Thrones episodes we've ever had. Also, heads up, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor later in the video, but it's not going to be too long, and it's not who you think it is, but we'll get to that. For now, let's get started with the opening images. So these shots of these fireballs being loaded into catapults and going through a pretty elaborate process before they can fly into Marines, they're visually impressive, sure, but they actually don't fulfill their meaning until you realize that we weren't the only ones watching that elaborate process. We actually were witnessing Dany's perspective on this attack and these fireballs. And take note of her expression. Has she ever been calmer? Another way to put it is, she's unimpressed. When you're the mother of dragons and they can do this, it becomes funny how hard these little guys have to learn to produce a fraction of the effect. It's like watching somebody make coffee by growing seeds and grinding the wouldn't it be a lot easier to just take meth? I know I should have said something like, oh, use a Keurig, but I just wanted to be clear, that's how much more intense it is to have dragon. 3 dragons. It's coffee beans. Even the Romans actually have something cooler than these fireballs. They originally fire or something called liquid fire. And technically, we still don't even know how they made it, like what it was surprised us. It was terrifying to use in naval battles because they could not be put out by water. You had to use sand and stuff to make flames. So they filled up pots with this stuff and lost it and made it fire. If this all sounds kind of familiar, it's because Greek fire is the basis of fire. And the water, that was actually based on the second air siege of Constantinople. But also, just like Tyrion did in that battle, they also used the Great Tree as a form. And speaking of wildfire, we get this moment with Tyrion reminding Daenerys and the Red Keep.
This is the Red Keep. Guild halls, the Vale, all the major thoroughfares.
Now, if you've been watching our breakdowns, you know that this sounds like theory time we've gone into more than once about what might happen at the end of this season with Cersei and that same fire. Go back and check out one of those videos if you want to know more, but the only thing I'll add here, aside from the damn it sure sounds like that's gonna happen, is that if you listen very, very closely and note the moment the camera cuts away from Tyrion, it sounds like part of his line was ADR'd, which means recorded after they shot this scene and then added in later.
Well, he told my brother, and Jamie told me. He had caches of wildfire hidden under the Red Keep.
So maybe the original script didn't mention that the wildfire was hidden underneath the Red Keep itself, which is the place all of the royals live, and they had to go back and put that line in to make sure that Tyrion could set that up for some reason. Or maybe not, but we will find out soon enough. Also, this little speech that Tyrion is giving here, it introduces us to the themes of this episode, about how conquerors and masters alike, they use different methods to inspire loyalty or fealty, and used incorrectly, the subjects will turn against that loyalty.
Burned every one of his citizens. The loyal ones and the traitors.
We'll talk about how that applies to the bastards later. But I will quickly point out, a lot of these guys down there are also just slaves that aren't really loyal, they're just doing what they gotta do. This whole scene, by the way, it introduces a possibility that we've never really talked about on our channel, but is worth discussing. Daenerys has the instincts of a Targaryen. She wants to savagely destroy multiple cities and kill everyone there. She definitely sounds like a conqueror, and also a little bit crazy. And let's remember, crazy is definitely in her blood. So, sure, Tyrion being there might make all the difference, but what if it doesn't? Could Daenerys Targaryen morph into becoming a great villain on this show? Like, I know it sounds crazy, but let's remember that she's about to bring a huge horde of rapists and pillagers to Westeros, and yet she doesn't seem too worried about it. It's just something to keep a lookout for. And speaking of keeping a lookout, did you notice how the show reused that trick from episode 3, where it looks like Dany is making eye contact with the person that is talking down to her, but once more she's actually looking past them toward the source of her power? Her eyes keep telling the true story of what's about to happen. Now, going outside the pyramid, we see that at the entrance of the city, the Sons of the Harpy are coordinating an attack at this same moment, which means that Tyrion was right and the slave masters were lying. They were, in fact, behind the Sons of Harpy. But also, this might shut down a storyline from the books. In the books, there's a big deal about who the leader of the Sons of the Harpy is. It's implied to be someone we already know, and it's a really big betrayal. But it feels like the show has decided to maybe eliminate this plotline entirely and just make the slave masters the leaders of the Sons. I sure hope it's not the case, though, because I love these, like, double-crossy twist moments. Like, it could be anyone, but it's probably no one. No one. Unless... No, it's definitely not. By the way, there are a lot of parallels between the two battles of this episode, and I'll point out a few later, but a pretty obvious one is that Dany and Jon are both pretty lucky to have these surprise cavalries at their backs. Now, I know we want to move on to talking about the other epic battle, but because that battle is so big and so much of the episode, I'm going to have a big love letter for that later. I think we should just really quick wrap up our points about Meereen, and then we can move on. Let's note that Daenerys still has her babies trained really well, with the word Dracarys once more wiping out some enemies, this being the third time. And according to the books, dragons are very monogamous creatures, so the fact that she has a sort of psychic link with all three of hers means that Dany definitely is more than just tight with her dragons. You can tell it's a very focused link, actually, because the dragons don't go on some rampage here. They specifically focus all their flames on only one ship. It's smart, because if you look closely, you can see all these men from the other ships abandoning them, making it so that Dany can very easily adopt this entire navy as her own, with only one ship having received any damage. Other side note, it's really fun to switch out the sound whenever you see the dragons breathing fire to the sound of dragons puking their guts out. Okay, then Grey Worm touches on our loyalty theme again when he asks the troops, why fight for men who would never fight for you? This is another parallel to the battle to come. And the way that Grey Worm decides which of these masters to execute is actually a little bit of a reference to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That movie takes the biblical theme of repentance being necessary for salvation, so begging forgiveness for all your sins so you can get into heaven, and it turns it into this phrase. And, just like in that movie, when the penitent man kneels down for forgiveness, he's saved. Also in that scene, this was really easy to miss. Tyrion looks away for the entirety of the execution, and at first I thought it was because he was being squeamish, but then I remembered that Tyrion has seen plenty of people die, and more than one at his own hands, so then I realized this is actually a bit of a power move. This means he's taken away the opportunity for them to even negotiate with him any further. This means it's now on them to determine which of them should die, and he knows if they have to argue amongst themselves, the dishonorable ones will be known pretty quickly.
He should die. Yes, him. He's not one of us. He's an outsider, lowborn. He does not speak for us.
Now let's just knock out this scene with Theon and Yara arriving in Marine, and we'll be done with this storyline for the episode. We learned a lot about how surprisingly skilled Yara is with these sort of negotiations, and it's amazing to see just how equal Dany comes to see Yara.
Has the Iron Islands ever had a queen?
No more than Westeros.
Dany forces people to bow to her, so it's very significant that here the scene ends with a handshake and the two of them standing on level ground. That's a first for Dany, and it's fitting that it comes with her first conversation with another powerful leading woman. This union, by the way, is also reminiscent of the one Jon had in preparation for his battle with the same kind of handshake, but it also is in contrast to the allegiance that's going to be forced upon him at the end of the episode. That definitely is not coming on equal ground. That'll be important, but we'll explain why when we get to it. Lastly, I'm going to point out that we've already said how Dany is becoming a lot like Aegon Targaryen, aka Aegon the Conqueror, who was famous for riding his dragon into battle. But what we haven't really talked about is how he did so in a group of 3 dragons. Except he didn't ride alone. His sister wives rode the other dragons alongside him. So could this be where this relationship is headed? And if Yara does become some sort of sister wife to Dany, and if she does get her own dragon, does that mean she can be trusted? It is worth noting that when Dany bans the Ironborn from any more reaving and raping, Yara barely puts up a fight.
That's our way of life. No more. No more.
But just a few episodes ago, Theon used only 3 words to describe Yara.
She is a reaver. She is a warrior. She is Ironborn.
If reaving, which means plundering like a Viking or a Dothraki, if reaving is really that high on her list, then can we really believe that she'd let it go that easily, or is she just telling Dany what she wants to hear? Alright, and as we transition over to Westeros, I'm just going to point out that earlier this season, Game of Thrones had Jon Snow be resurrected the same day Orthodox Christians were celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It was Easter. And when this episode aired, it was all about bastard sons and a room full of people bad-mouthing their fathers.
Our fathers were evil men. All of us here.
And it was on Father's Day. So if we extend that thinking, I wonder if anything bad is going to happen this upcoming Sunday holiday, which is, Kids Day. Oh. Sorry, buddy. Okay, moving on to the battle in the north. We start with this parley between the bastards, and it's interesting to hear this skewed worldview that Ramsay has. Like, he doesn't know he's the villain. He keeps calling Jon a bastard. Even though so is Ramsay, he refers to Sansa as his and Lady Bolton. And he even seems to call Lady Mormont a treasonous lord, when really hers is one of the only houses that refuses to break their oath to House Stark. It's like the opposite of treason. I love this stare down, by the way, that she gets him, which is made even better when you find out that this little actress, Bella Ramsey, she'd never acted before this part. She's just that scary of a child. But back to this point about being bastards. Obviously it's significant as it's the title of the episode, but it's also part of this grander theme of loyalty. Aside from in Dorne, being a bastard in Westeros is kind of like the ultimate test of loyalty. You're expected to do everything this family tells you, and if it comes to it, you're supposed to fight and possibly die for them.
I may be a bastard, but he is my father, and blood is my blood.
But despite being of their blood, you have no rights to their lands, you're not the heir to their titles, you don't get their last name, you're not even supposed to fly their banner.
Bastard boy, nothing to inherit.
It makes the whole concept of a battle of bastards pretty ironic, because if they were technically bastards, they wouldn't even have any anything to offer the other one if they lose. I know that it's more complicated in this situation, but it still illustrates this idea pretty well. Bastards don't get most of the benefits, yet they're supposed to be totally loyal to their houses. We're gonna finish up this thought a little later, but suffice it to say that Ramsey and John take very different paths in their loyalty to their houses.
I belong with my brother. We're your brothers now.
And the loyalty that they've earned from those that fight for them, or haven't earned. Oh, I will point out though, before we move on, that neither of these bastard-born men follow the rule of not flying the banners of their houses. According to Westerosi tradition, they're supposed to fly banners where the two main colors of the house sigil have been swapped. Now, we can probably give Ramsey a pass because Bruce did legitimize him before he died, but John technically shouldn't be flying these. So, one, maybe he's using Sansa's right to fly them, and two, what was he supposed to do? Have everyone stop what they're doing and sew new banners? So, no, while I don't care that John is kind of breaking some rules here, I do think that the banner that he's supposed to be flying, though, the one with the swapped colors, is really interesting. Because the Stark banner is known for portraying a gray direwolf on a white field of snow, but if you were to swap the colors properly, the white field of snow would become a gray backdrop, and that direwolf, it would become white, just like Ghost. No word if it would need to have red eyes, though. Speaking of direwolves, when Lord Umber tosses Shaggy Dog's head onto the battlefield, there's a small chance that this was being foreshadowed way back in Season 1. Rickon is hiding in the Stark crypts with Shaggy Dog, and he very specifically states,
he doesn't like cheese.
Now, first, I'm gonna remind you, in the entirety of this TV show, Rickon Stark has had less than like 10 lines, and in all of those lines, other than when he's directly quoting someone else, the only time he ever mentions an object, it's those chains and how Shaggy Dog doesn't like them. And who killed Shaggy Dog? The Umbers. And what's their house sigil? Chains. And considering the Umbers are responsible for Rickon's death too, breaking their Stark loyalty and taking him hostage, it's a bit fitting that immediately after Rickon says that line, he and Shaggy descend back into the darkness of the crypt together. The chains betrayed them both. Moving on, it's here that Sansa does her badass storm off, and it's also right after this that Ramsay mentions that he hasn't fed his dogs in 7 days.
My dogs are desperate to meet you. I haven't fed them for 7 days. They're ravenous.
So many of you were rightly confused about how Sansa could know about this when she quotes it later.
I haven't fed them in 7 days. You said it yourself.
But I think it's okay to imagine that Sansa just heard that detail from someone else in her camp. That scene with Sansa and Ramsay wasn't until the next night. So in those 24 or more hours, I could easily imagine that their men who were scared of Ramsay's numbers were telling scary stories about what they'd heard. Kind of like how you can't help but think about the worst possible things right before you get on a plane. They're just sharing these horrifying details. It also could be why Ramsay looks a little shocked when she says that. Like, oh, did not know you were aware of that. Okay, now moving on. We do have this strategy meeting scene, but I want to get into that when we're talking about the actual battle, so I'll get back to how strategies worked out later. But before we move forward, I think it's important to point out that with Sansa's history, she's actually right about this. I don't think that's a reference to Arya, by the way. I know it kind of sounds that way. I think it's just the fact that every person whose job it's been to protect her has failed at that duty. Her dad, her fiance, her first husband, the Hound, Littlefinger, Theon, her second husband. If anything, it's hard to find a single relationship for Sansa that has ever been even a positive one. Maybe Brienne? I mean, we'll see. So I do get where she's coming from. We'll come back to this Davos and Tormund scene a little later, so let's just skip to Jon talking to Melisandre. Two quick things to point out here. One, Jon keeps staring into the fire, and I think that's because he knows there's at least some truth to this Lord of Light guy. He's living proof, and he's wondering, or maybe even hoping, that it might be possible to get a glimpse of the battle in the flames. We'll see how it turns out. And two, Melisandre is straight up lying to Jon in this scene. It's like she's all meek and shy, and I know she started out this season super sad and wimpy, but we know she thinks that because she brought Jon back, he must be the prince that was promised. She said it a few episodes ago.
He's the prince that was promised.
But she also knows that she gave Stannis way too much false confidence by way of describing him like a badass constantly and telling him about her vision. That cockiness was part of his downfall. So that's why when Jon asked her advice, all she says is, instead of filling Jon in on all of her visions. Basically, she just doesn't want to jinx him. Oh, and those visions, this is pretty cool. They're all coming true. I've mentioned this before, but in the clips, there's a moment where Melisandre's confused. She's searching her visions for Stannis by asking the Lord of Light, show me the prince that was promised, Azor Ahai, and she thinks something's wrong because instead of Stannis, all she keeps seeing is snow. Now, that's pretty obvious as a reference to Jon Snow. But the newer visions she's had, well, in the first episode of this season, she's confused again because Jon Snow's dead, and she says in her vision, well, that's has now come true. And last season, she said,
I have seen myself fulfilling that misery. I have seen the flayed man banners lowered to the ground.
that's also come true now. So on the outside, she's lying, but deep down, she knows it's all going according to plan. And you know she's got her mojo back because she's also got her inner heat back. That is not a warm outfit she's wearing. Of course, we'll have to see how long these good times last for her because now it seems that Davos has figured out what happened to Shireen. And there are a few things to point out with this realization. First, this is a gorgeous shot. Like, seriously beautiful. Note how the sunlight is perfectly framed to recreate the fire that Davos is realizing happened. That's masterful. And also, it's the first reference of many to the director's inspiration for the cinematography of the upcoming battle scene, Akira Kurosawa's Ron. We'll bring that inspiration up again shortly. Also, the shot at the end of the scene parallels the shot at the end of the scene right before this one, when Melisandre was left in her tent. The two are both cast in shadow, lit from behind by a fiery orange glow. And both these people have just had basically the same realization. Whenever God would kill people for seemingly no good reason, he's a pretty crappy God.
What kind of code would do something like that?
The window. And then finally, this scene perfectly sets up what's about to happen, because we've just been reminded of what Stannis did when he had to choose between the life of a child from his family and his own success in battle, and now Jon is going to face the same dilemma. And call it stupid if you want, but the fact that his battle plans go out the window when Rickon is in danger, that only further shows the loyalty that this bastard has for his quasi-family. It even outweighs that of the supposedly noble father and his highborn daughter. Now, before we get into this bloodbath part of the battle, let's not just skip over the fact that Rickon has died. First off, Ramsay's sadistic game and skill with the bow and arrow, they're actually foreshadowed way back in the very first time we ever saw Ramsay. And I know you probably thought Rickon should have zigzagged. Yeah, even the actor did too, actually. But the poor kid had no idea what he was doing. And if you've seen Apocalypto, it turns out zigzagging doesn't always help. And throughout the rest of the episode, we're going to keep calling out some amazing choices that the director made to keep increasing the tension until we were literally feeling the stress of these moments ourselves. Here's one brilliant choice. Rickon runs and Ramsay pulls back the arrows and we cut away waiting for that release. And he keeps dragging it out. And he does this once. And then again. And then we've got the big dramatic one, the rule of threes, and that one misses too. Looking at Ramsay's face and knowing that he's a very skilled archer, he's definitely missing on purpose. He's drawing it out as long as possible. And then, suddenly, without any build-up or tension, boom, an arrow just shoots through Rickon's chest. The director sets us up with expectations, gives us a pattern to recognize, and then he suddenly changes all of it to hit us with as much surprise as his Rickon. And then Rickon is dead, and 3 theories are completed. 2 I've told you about before. We talked about how the name of his direwolf, Shaggy Dog, refers to a story where it seems like a character is going to have some big important story, and instead he just kind of suddenly dies without having really accomplished much. I've also told you about how the waif's training of Arya seemed to match up with violent attacks on people that Arya cares about, and Rickon was included in that montage. But here's a new one I haven't mentioned before. In the very first episode of Game of Thrones, Robert Baratheon arrives in Winterfell and he touches specific members of the Stark family. Eddard, Catelyn, Rickon, and Robb. Now, with Rickon dead, each of those Starks has died, and you could say the curse of Robert's touch is complete. Now, if you're wondering why Robert would have anything to do with the death of those Starks, let's remember what else happens in that pilot episode. The Starks find a litter of direwolves whose mothers just died. The direwolf is the sigil of House Stark, and what killed this direwolf? A stag, the sigil of House Baratheon. It's long been predicted, and now it seems pretty true that the Baratheons would bring about the downfall of House Stark. Side note, that same scene with Robert where he touches the now deceased characters, check out what he asks Arya.
Your name is?
She can't get away from that question, and they've been setting it up since the beginning. Oh, and speaking of no one, that's who our sponsor is. No one. There's no sponsor. Instead of that, I actually have a short announcement to make. Hopefully you've been enjoying these breakdowns. They are very fun to make, and I feel like we've built this badass community here of people who really seem to care as much about nerdy stuff as we do. That's why we so badly want to grow this channel into some epic nerd sanctuary where we can explore way more nerd properties at any given time. And to make this legit, we've taken your advice. We've joined Patreon. If you don't know, Patreon's a site that lets you all watching make recurring contributions directly to us to help us make the things that you're watching. The circle of life, if you will. And any contribution can actually make a big difference. The way the math works out, if even just half of you were to send us the equivalent of a $1 cup of coffee each month, it would totally add up. You are also welcome to donate more, whatever you're comfortable with, but the point is, as more of you donate, we'd actually start to scale this channel up more and more, and our current team could start working full-time, we'd hire more editors, we'd launch new shows, and eventually we'd start releasing videos every single day. For instance, I've got so many Game of Thrones theory and historical connection videos that are sitting in my head right now that I'm desperate to make. So if you've got a second now or after the video's done, head on over to patreon.com/newrockstars and check out all the stuff we have planned to do, like getting our videos translated into more languages, which is something a lot of you have been asking for. And also check out the perks that you get when you sign up to be one of our supporters. Things like exclusive theory and Q&A articles that are going to be released only on Patreon, or early access to our videos, or video chatting with us about all things nerdy. Anyway, thank you in advance for anything you're able to contribute to help us make more of these videos. You guys are great. Let's move on. Oh, and we're moving on right into theory time. We're still talking about Rick and Stark, and while it's sad that he's gone, you can find some comfort in one thing. John says, I think that's really important. Skip to this time if you don't want to know why. But Rickon always loved the crypts. He felt very safe there. It's where he was hiding in that scene earlier. So it is nice that he gets to spend eternity there. However, the fact that it sounds like John is going to be the one to take him down in there, well, that's interesting because you know who else is laid to rest down there? Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister, and if the theory is true, John's real mother. But why is that a big deal? Because John has dreamt of this moment in the crypt multiple times. In the books, he very vividly describes these things with his hands. He says he finds himself wandering the crypt, he knows he has to go in, he doesn't know why. The old kings of winter are down there, but it's not them he's afraid of. In other descriptions, he hears whispers that he's not a part. So if he's not afraid of the old kings of winter, then what is he afraid of? Could it be his mother, Lyanna? Will John examining her tomb lead him to discovering the truth about his own parentage and that he is a Stark, he's a Targaryen? Or maybe even worse, would he learn not only who his parents are, but maybe something terrible about them? We all know that his mother could be Lyanna Stark and his father could be Rhaegar Targaryen, but what if he learned something like Lyanna didn't want him to survive? Well, we know Lyanna's last words were a promise to Ned, and I would bet money, by the way, that we will see more of the Tower of Joy next episode, probably through Grant, and I expect to hear that line. But what if that promise was not a good one? Like, maybe it's not a promise to care for the baby, but a promise to kill the baby, because he's an heir to the Targaryen throne. And maybe Lyanna hated Rhaegar. I know that sounds like a lot of maybes, but it would explain not only why John would be scared of this dream revelation, which would be so dark, by the way, and we know George R. R. Martin likes Stark, but also, it would explain why when Ned was having nightmares way back when, he dreams of blood and broken promises. Why would they be broken promises if all she wanted was him to take care of John or even hide his identity? He did those things. But if she asked him to kill the baby, well, then that definitely would be a broken promise. Also, though, maybe it could be something way less dark, like maybe he finds just evidence of Rhaegar and Lyanna having been married or something, and he's not such a bastard. His parents were actually married to each other. Targaryens did allow for polygamous marriage. Or, as is always the case with theory time, maybe it's nothing. But I'll be damned if we get through the next episode, and we don't at least have the strongest teasing hint ever that Rhaegar and Lyanna are John's parents. Okay, back to normal mode. And we're on to the battle. And yes, this was the most amazing battle the show has had yet. The director that I keep referencing, his name is Miguel Sapochnik, and he also directed Hard Home last year, which was the second most amazing battle now that the show's ever had. This guy's a genius. And actually, I feel like so much has already been said about this battle. I'm going to try to stick to mostly stuff that I haven't seen around a lot. Let's dive in. But first, let's clarify the Stark strategy that they were supposed to use, in case you missed it. The Starks were supposed to hold back and just wait the Bolton army out.
It's crucial that we let them charge at us.
When the Bolton army has had enough waiting and charges, they won't be able to spread out and come around the sides of the force because the Stark men dug trenches on the sides of the battlefield, so it'll create a lane that they have to stay inside of. Once the Boltons drive up the center of the Stark force would retreat backward, causing the Boltons to chase them, but letting the Stark forces surround them on the two other sides, and making the Boltons have to fight the battle on three fronts at the same time. It's actually a pretty brilliant strategy, and now here's the missable part of it. It's exactly what Ramsay ends up doing to the Starks. Ramsay draws them out first, not once, but twice, and then he actually one-ups their plan by surrounding them not just on three sides, but by adding that wall of the dead and having Lord Umber drive up the rear. They actually surround them on four sides. Honestly, it's pretty genius. And the historical precedence for these strategies is really well known, but I gotta take off. I'm going to VidCon right now, so Eric is going to tag in and help break down the rest of the episode. Feel free to tweet at me or hit me up on Facebook for any questions you have directly for me. Yes, I think next week's episode is going to be crazy, especially considering how much stuff they have to wrap up. But I gotta go. My ride is here. So I'll see you next time. Bye.
Hey guys, Eric taking over now to talk about the real nerdy stuff, history. Huzzah! So, like Philip said, Miguel Sapochnik looked to a bunch of famous historical battles to inspire the war strategy that we call Battle of Athens. So, let's get started. Okay, so first is the Battle of Athens between England and France in 1415. So, in that battle, the outnumbered English forces planned to use the same defense as the Dutch tactic as our Scotland. Instead, just like John, the English were forced to charge first. But one of the big reasons that was famous is it was one of the first times the longbow was used to dominate. Now, the longbow was a lot taller than other types of bows. It lets archers fire from long ranges. And just like an action sport, a lot of the deaths we see in the Battle of Athens are from arrows. And pretty much all of these arrows are coming from Ramsay's side. Davos backs down because he doesn't want to kill his own men. Just kill our old men, stand down. But Ramsay doesn't care. He just orders all of his men. Yeah! Now, why is this important? Two reasons. One, Ramsay's using another strategy borrowed from battles of history, and it's a pretty dark one, using mounds of corpses to box in the enemy. Now, in the American Civil War and several other high-casualty wars, several first-hand accounts describe bodies piling up so high that they were becoming literal obstructions on the battlefield. But two, this brings up a different theme of loyalty that Phil was talking about earlier. Using arrows like this was also a tactic used by Ramsay's father, Roosevelt, during the Battle of the Green Fork. That's the one where Tyrion got knocked out in the show, but in the book, Tyrion notices that arrows are raining down into the melee, killing men on both sides, and he's shocked that Roose would even order that. Roose's men are not that important to him. They're like pawns or beasts for the slaughter. One-sided loyalty between Roose. Also, while I'm on this point, remember Ramsay was deceived when Roose raped a woman under the clean body of her husband. So really, it was Roose Bolton who instilled this whole old-school, feudal ideology into the Bolton family, this idea of one-sided loyalty. And then that idea is the same thing that inspired Ramsay to kill Roose, just like it will end up doing Ramsay as well. But getting back to the historical background of this battle scene, this shot of John getting trampled by his own men in mud, nearly suffocating, that's actually something that happened to the soldiers in the Battle of Agincourt. Men were literally stampeded and buried alive underneath corpses, drowning as mud seeped into their helmets. So if you felt claustrophobic during this scene, congrats. That's exactly how those soldiers felt, but in real life. We survived. They didn't. We're the lucky ones. We don't have to fight in war. That's great. But anyway, I'll come back to that. There's another famous battle that inspired the direction of the Battle of the Bastards, the Battle of May. So when you see the Bolton soldiers encircling John's army with these shields, that was based on the same tactic used in the Battle of May that was fought between the Romans and the Carthaginians in 216 BC. The Carthaginians, led by Hannibal, encircled the Romans with their shields and killed them off. Now, the show actually designed a shield wall using the same structure by the soldiers with shields back in the Roman time. Several layers deep, with the front line just holding the shields and the line behind it poking these pikes through. Also, the chanting that you hear tactic from the soldiers back in those days. It worked both as a form of intimidation and as a way to synchronize their movements, since they couldn't really see each other. Also, I should probably point out that seeing shields used in battle is actually a really rare thing for Game of Thrones. They pretty much never use shields. It's probably because they're heavy props and they obstruct the camera's view of the actors, but here, shields are a game changer in this battle, just like they were in most battles of history. Also, it's cool to see that they made a miniature version of a shield for the actor playing one. So aside from the history that inspired the strategy of this battle, let's talk about some of the cinematic influences. So this type of battle is called a pitch-field battle, and the director, Miguel Sapochnik, watched as many famous movie pitch-field battles that he could find. So Philip mentioned this earlier, but one of the major film influences on this battle scene was the movie Ron by Japanese film director Akira Kurosawa. Now, Ron is a movie that shows these famous aerial shot battle scenes with horses and men just slamming against each other over and over again until we don't feel anything anymore. Kurosawa's goal was to condemn the horror of war and to show a time without loyalty or fealty. He shot things from an overhead perspective, toward the ground, rarely showing us the sky, because he wanted to show us things from the God's perspective as we saw men slaughter each other. Sapochnik wanted to evoke that same condemnation of war, intentionally showing us violent stabs and hits without focusing on the victim. He also emphasizes the role of randomness and luck in battle. Arrows are landing all around John and killing people around him, but notice none of them actually hit him. A miracle. And in certain shots, threats get taken out before John even sees them. Now, you could call this luck, or plot armor, or even Melisandre's performance, but it's clearly but it's The first is that he switched from the aerial shot to check out this 1 minute never cut. John fights through the melee like he's trapped in the middle of traffic. This shot conveys the horror of war, but from John's side in particular. I feel like it's inspired by that famous long take from Self-Defense, where the camera pulls around the character while the camera never cuts away. These kind of shots pull you into action. You're in the middle of war with the character. Quick little moment I want to point out here. When John spins around and swing at this rider about to slash at him, check out how his Valerian steel sword totally shatters this other guy's sword. You can see the principle flying away. His sword doesn't break up all the swords that it comes into contact with during this battle, but this guy on horseback is coming up at a greater speed. Either way, John's sword is super effective. It's a cool detail. Like Kurosawa, Sapochnik uses now, a long range compresses objects in the foreground and objects in the background. Kurosawa uses and it also saved a lot of money because he wouldn't have to show a lot of detail in the background that way. Sapochnik also uses a long lens, but he finds a new way to use it. Check out this shot in particular of John as he takes off against the Army cavalry. The long lens makes the forces look a lot closer than they are in real life. That way the director can make the forces look like they're running into each other or closing in on each other rather than actually sending those animals into each other and hurting them. Now, unfortunately, safety on film sets didn't really exist. And I talked about this earlier, but that claustrophobia and that empathy really comes across in these shots of John being trampled. We physically cannot breathe. We feel that pressure too. And when John finally emerges and gaps the air, then he can finally in. There's a similar shot in Kill Bill Volume 2, saw that movie, where the bride has to crawl out of a grave, and we can't breathe until she does. Fun fact, Tarantino was also influenced by Kurosawa when he was making those movies. Now, that actually brings up a ton of other cinematic references that this battle sequence makes, so I'm going to try to go through all of them. First off, Braveheart is a clear influence on the scene. It's one of the first movies to show a graphic six-field battle from the ground perspective. The close-ups of men slashing and really cutting into each other. Lots of gore and bloodshed, not just lightly slashing swords and moving on. Similarly, this battle scene covers all the soldiers outside with blood, snow, and steam. Similar shots of arrows raining down. Also, the carbon bone that you see Foreman use to stab Umber is similar to the antler William Wallace uses. Also, I feel like I should point out that Jew or Mormont, even though he's long dead, in the current universe was another Braveheart. And a lot of these shots came inspired directly from the movie Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Like that slow-motion shot of the horses galloping looks a lot like the ones from the famous Faramir charge montage. That's one where also, this shot of John facing off solo against the cavalry looks a lot like Aragorn at the Black Gate, which also has a similar aerial and closing circle shot, like the one from this episode. Also, when they hear the horns,
jacking niggas with no money, bro. What the fuck?
like a wave parallels the Army of the Dead in that battle. Before I move on, there's just a few more missable details that I want to point out. Like, notice how when John emerges from the sea of bodies, this shot mirrors that overhead shot of Daenerys surrounded by people in that Misa scene. Now, the season keeps showing us parallel shots of John and Daenerys, and all that is obviously intentional. And if Daenerys becomes increasingly villainous, like Philip was talking about earlier, it could mean a conflict is brewing between these two. Also, I thought it was interesting how Tormund took this big bite out of Umber's neck. That reminded me of the bite that Brienne took out of the Hound during their close quarters fight. Really think these two are the same thing. And check out this shot of Sansa. The camera zooms right past Littlefinger because, in this moment at least, this isn't his victory, it's Sansa's. She averts her eyes away from John, and it looks like she's feeling guilty here because she showed more loyalty to Littlefinger than to her half-brother. John's like, what the F? Why didn't you tell me about these guys? Come on. And yeah, that is the question we all have, right? Like, why didn't Sansa tell John about Littlefinger in the Knights of the Vale? I actually think the next episode is going to address this fully, but for now, I have a few theories why Sansa didn't tell him. One, in the days leading up to the battle, Sansa could see how emotional and impulsive John was being, and she didn't want to hand over her ace of souls to get mostly wiped out in the opening melee when John Leroy But two, I think this could have been a tactic coming from Littlefinger. Remember, he made that deal with Cersei last season before the first battle of Winterfell between the Boltons and Stannis.
Let's start a zone's battle. Let the enemies of the throne slaughter each other, and when they're done, seize Winterfell from whichever thief survives.
And if you succeed?
Name me Warden of the North.
hanging back to let both sides wipe each other out while he swoops in at the end. And always fulfilling his plan. And now he has by far the hardest job. Maybe all of
I know you're a man of war. When I see Sansa Stark's head don't spike.
But whatever the reason she didn't tell him, this time she was able to that he didn't really agree. That's not too worth. This is a big problem for John. So one time we gave clearly on problem for this guy. But remember, one of the giants, one of the other ones, the one who another giant breaking into Winterfell the same way. So I don't know about you, but here's a question I had about Ramsay in this moment. Now, if he could shoot one in the eye here, why didn't he just shoot Jon? Like, he clearly didn't aim for Jon and miss and hit one. That was an intentional move. So when you think about it, either way, Ramsay knows he's a dead man. But if he shoots Jon when he's not looking, 1-1 or Tormund or one of the other wildlings is just going to pulverize him without thinking twice. But leaving Jon alive keeps the game going. He's able to bait him back into single combat, which is what Jon initially proposed.
You suggested one-on-one combat, didn't you?
So pissing off Jon, but not killing him, still gives Ramsay a fighting chance. Also, I like this detail here. Notice how Jon uses the Mormont shield to block Ramsay's arrows. So even though he was only able to get 62 soldiers from House Mormont, their shield is saving his life several times over. So it's just pointing out how Jon needed every bit of help he could get to take back his home. So when Jon finally takes down Ramsay, he lets his emotion take over again. The director actually told Kit Harington to play this like he was beating an animal with no regard for Ramsay at all. And Kit responded that he would make it look like he was kneading bread. The idea was that this should be an empty victory for Jon and nosedive into darkness so that it would set up him handing this over to Sansa to finish the job. Again, Sansa's pragmatism is outweighing Jon's impulsiveness and emotion. But if you look closely at this overhead shot, someone else is standing in this courtyard that none of the angles show. Littlefinger. It's like the scene went out of its way not to give him his own shot. So as usual, Littlefinger stays the man behind the scenes, looming over everything, waiting for other people to do the heavy lifting so that he can pick up the pieces when the dust settles. So this shot of the Bolton banner dropping and being replaced with a Stark banner is such a satisfying victory moment, kind of like seeing the American flag being raised at Iwo Jima. If you're American, if you're from any other country, just to replace that with your country's flag. It'll be great to see the Bolton flayed man on Winterfell get replaced with the Stark direwolf in the opening credits next episode, just like the gods intended it to be. So moving on to the final scene when Sansa confronts Ramsay. And even though this is clearly the end for him, he still acts like he's in control.
Our time together is about to come.
He invoked the famous historical Hannibal during the battle, but now he invokes another famous Hannibal from movies, creepily greeting us from behind bars.
Hello, Sansa.
So we're keeping the Ramsay horror tropes going with Silence of the Lambs, but Ramsay reminds me of another Cage movie villain in the way he tells Sansa,
I'm part of you.
It's like he's telling her that he turned her from the innocent caged bird into an evil, ruthless person just like he is. Or in other words,
tonight you're gonna break your one rule.
There's actually another Dark Knight connection in this scene that I'll get to in a second. So a lot of people are thinking that Ramsay saying,
I'm part of you,
might mean he impregnated her. I guess it's possible. I mean, we did see Sansa sewing new clothes earlier this season, and she had a different appetite back in Castle Black, and I guess those heavy cloaks hide her body shape, but I'm kind of leaning against it just because it seems like the show is ending this storyline with Ramsay's death, and considering it must have taken at least a few months for Jon and Sansa to crisscross the north to build up their troops, I feel like she would have started showing by now. Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to point out in the background here. First off, this black dog that emerges from the shadows. I feel like it could be a reference to the Grim, which is a black dog that's an omen for death, just like Ramsay's death is imminent. But check out how the editing matches up with Sansa's words when Ramsay's looking out the snowy window.
Your name will disappear. All memory of you will disappear.
Ramsay has been obsessed with names this episode, and pretty much the entire time that we've known him. Becoming a Bolton was a huge deal for his character.
Now tell me, what is your name?
Ramsay Snow.
From this day until your last day, you are Ramsay Bolton. son of Bruce Bolton, Warden of the North.
You honor me.
In all episode, he was rubbing it in other people's faces.
Bastard, bastard, bastard.
But now, Sansa is taking that name back from him. He's back to who he was before, Ramsay Snow. And what is he looking at through the window? Snow. And that brings us to our closing images. For Ramsay, being stripped of his place in history transforms him from a lord with command loyalty and fealty to a bastard with no real claim, and no one loyal to him. Unlike the bastard who won this battle, Ramsay treated his men like beasts, sending them to be slaughtered by his own arrows, and literally starving these dogs for 7 days. Literally everyone who has served Ramsay has been a victim of his cruelty. Theon, Sansa, Bruce Bolton, his own soldiers, every woman he's ever slept with, and they're all hungry to turn on him. So when he says, "My house never lost, they're loyal beasts," it brings up another line from the Joker.
And then we'll see how loyal a hungry dog really is.
Everyone in this episode is repaying cruelty by breaking loyalty. These dogs with Ramsay, a former slave like Grey Worm killing the masters, and this wife turning on her husband. Earlier this season, when Ramsay stuck his house on Fat Walda and the baby, the camera luckily didn't show us that violence. But this time, Sansa forces us to watch. First to turn away, but then she says, I didn't see it. And so does the audience. The dog repays Ramsay's lack of loyalty with the bite to the dog's neck, and as you hear him scream, you can almost make out the squeal of a pig. That was actually an intentional move by the director and the sound designer. That's because the director learned that when the human windpipe is severed, it makes the same kind of wheeze sound. Pretty graphic. Don't get any ideas, Kylo? Okay. And I love this. Check this out. When Sansa walks away, she does it in the same exact camera frame that we saw Jon when his watch was ended back in episode 3. Now she left the faceless men last episode. All these closing images are exactly the same. That makes 3 Starks who are now brushing off the things that were holding them back, ready to reclaim the home that was always there. Okay, so a few lingering questions. 1, do you think Sansa was being manipulative this season? Remember, back in episode 4, Sansa convinced Jon to march on Winterfell specifically to save Rickon.
A monster has taken our home and our brother.
But in this episode, she pretty much assumes Rickon's going to die anyway.
What should we do? How do we get Rickon back?
I'll never get him.
So I'm wondering if this whole battle was just so Sansa did her revenge on Ramsay. Not to say that she's wrong for wanting that or Ramsay doesn't deserve revenge. She totally does, but to sacrifice the lives of thousands of men just for your own selfish desire for revenge seems like it's a big deal for Sansa. Notice the smile on her face when she's walking away in the closing shot. She looks pretty satisfied with herself. And if this is really the case, Sansa really has taken a dark turn, and that Ramsay really is a part of it. Also, now that Ramsay Bolton is gone, who is the main villain of Westeros now? Now, obviously, the Night King is the supernatural big bad for the endgame of Game of Thrones, but I'm wondering which human will step up as the most ruthless. So, we talked about Daenerys before. Littlefinger is now the guy with the largest army in Westeros, maybe, and he has his thumb over 3 of the 7 kingdoms. So, this guy's really looking like the evil genius. I'm curious to see what his next move is. And of course, if our theories about Cersei end up being true, she may go full circle from the evil queen that we hated in the first season, for the empathetic mother that we got to know in some of the later seasons, back to being the evil queen again. But we'll have to see what happens next episode. Also, this may just be me, but I'm curious, are we going to see a naval battle on this show? Daenerys is now headed west with her small fleet composed of the ships that she got from the Masters and the ones brought by Yara and Theon. But we know that Euron is building his 1,000 ships and heading east to meet her. So this would set up an interesting conflict. We know the Dothraki don't sail well, and the Ironborn boarding parties seem like they'd be more useful in a battle at sea, as opposed to dragons who just burn everything in sight. And if Philip's idea of Daenerys and Yara riding the 2 dragons ends up happening, who do you think will be riding that 3rd dragon? Let me know what you think, and again, if you like what we do here at New Rockstars and you want to contribute, make sure to check out our Patreon page. Seriously, we're a tiny operation here. It's just Philip and me and Ted, Kylo, and if you help us out, I promise you'll really start to see a difference in how fast and frequent we can get these videos out. Also, check out our past breakdowns of the other Game of Thrones episodes this season, and look out for a breakdown on the season finale next week. And make sure to subscribe to New Rockstars, and like this video, share it around. It's another way you can help grow this channel. You can follow us on Twitter at New Rockstars, or hit up Philip on Twitter at Demo, or me at EA Voss. You can also get in touch with Philip on Facebook at facebook.com/DemoKnows. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
In a show as epic as Game of Thrones, it's actually becoming a director trademark for this guy. This director's directed 4 episodes of this show, and they often open this way, just really scaled down. This season he directed Battle of the Bastards, and this episode The Winds of Winter, and he starts with that focus on the small mechanics of what's about to happen. And then last season he directed Hard Home and The Gift. And you can see how The Gift also opens with the simplicities of preparation. And actually, now is a good time to explain a really special relationship between these 2 episodes. So last season's Hard Home is a pretty obvious sister episode to this season's Battle of the Bastards. They're both about Jon Snow and his men being completely devastated in battle against their former allies turned enemies. But actually, the other pair of episodes, this season finale and last season's The Gift, they're also very much sister episodes too. In fact, they're more linked than probably any pair of episodes the show's ever had. So this episode's all about how we're finally seeing the changing of the seasons, and with that we get all the setups and promises finally being paid off. So if this episode is about the fulfillment of those promises, The Gift is the episode that set up those ideas. We'll get into the links of these 2 sister episodes more as we go, but let's just call it right now, this Sapochnik guy as director, he's a genius. Okay, now before we move on completely from the opening images, let's quickly point out a few things here. First, it's important to realize that everyone is getting ready for most of the sequence, but when you look at Cersei, she's already dressed. That's pointing out to us that while each of these people is just beginning to plan for their day, Cersei's plans have already long been in motion, and now she's waiting for everyone to catch up to her. And this outfit is clearly a feminine power outfit that's inspired by the powerful leather attire that was once worn by Tywin Lannister. Just like how Jaime recently stepped into the Tywin role but kind of hated it, Cersei is trying on the role of head of House Lannister, but she actually loves it. Then, once everyone is in place, Cersei finally chooses to don one more layer, armor. She's not going to trial, she's going to war. This is a nice callback actually to the first season when Cersei suggests she'd make a better ruler than Robert.
I should wear the armor, and you the gown.
And as we prepare to transition to the trial itself, I'll point out how this version of trial with 7 high septons is something that hasn't been done in hundreds of years, and while it feels like we just learned about it a few episodes ago, this actually was first set up in The Gift.
A trial will be held for each of them to determine if they're guilty of any acts that might constitute a violation of the tenets of the faith.
Who will stand judge?
7 septons.
But it's not just being set up in that scene. The High Sparrow actually foreshadows what's going to happen to every person there and to the Great Sept of Baelor itself. Listen closely.
Baelor built his scepter on it. That great gilded monstrosity up there. Strip away the gold and the ornaments. Knock down the statues and the pillars. Tyrell's finery will be stripped away. Their lies knocked down. Their true hearts laid bare for all to see. So it will be for all of us.
Well, yeah, all of those things are definitely stripped away, himself included, but it's funny because as it's happening, he's totally blind to the event itself until it's too late. Remember how a few episodes back, a shot of a sewer grate was used to remind us about these tunnels beneath the city and what Cersei could do with them? Well, our first shot inside the Great Set concludes that setup by aiming down directly over the sewer grate that leads below the set. And the High Sparrow being totally clueless to that danger that's beneath him, it's emphasized again and again in these later shots where he keeps being seen from below, but he's only concerned what is up above him, the gods. He's paying attention to the wrong direction. And this being unaware of the danger that awaits, it's not just the cinematography communicating this. This amazing, amazing score plays a big role in telling the story too. Now before we dive into how it does that, I want to point out something interesting here. This is the first time we've heard piano as the lead instrument in Game of Thrones, which normally uses strings and percussion. Piano happens to be a fairly modern instrument invented somewhere around 1700. Meanwhile, we're used to a score that matches the Middle Ages, which is the time that we usually equate with the show. So this choice to use piano is another one of these markers in this episode that signifies a modernization, changing of the seasons, out with the old and with the new. And again, that's a major theme of this episode. But okay, I want to dive into just how masterful this piece of music was, but because I know I'm about to nerd out about music theory, and that might not be up all of your alleys, here's the time to skip to if you don't care about the role music plays.
さくら、お前をそんなにしたやつなら
に乗るな、かき消してやる。何、火の中に攻めてきた。ストーってやる。
分かった分かった、油断しすぎだよ。
しまった。落ち着け、ナルト。
そうだ、痛みを知れ。
俺が憎い真な天性。私の腕を折れるまで握ってくれたね。
ガトーが俺を利用したように、俺も白を利用していただけのことだ。
あいつはお前のことが本当に好きだったんだぞ。それなのに本当に何とも思わねえのか。死んでやりきることは難しい。本当にお前は何とも思わねえのかよ。お前みたいに強くなったら本当にそうなっちまうのかよ。あいつはお前のために命を捨てたんだぞ。道具として死ぬなんてそんなのすごすぎるってばよ。
それ以上何も言うな。俺にはわかる。あいつは優しすぎた。最後にお前らとやれてよかった。忍びも人間だ。感情のない道具にはなれないのかもしれない。
Lobbying is about foresight. About anticipating your opponent's moves.
She's your enemy now.
And devising countermeasures.
How the hell did she manage that?
Piece of work, Elizabeth.
I was hired to win. I'd use whatever resource I have.
You would lead the fight on gun control.
There's over 5 million of us, and we're armed.
Start them in position.
They will throw you in jail for contempt of Congress!
Winner plots one step ahead of the opposition.
We have to make it personal.
You know the word annihilate. It means reduced to nothing.
This is more important than my career.
It's mind-boggling.
You crossed the line.
Ingenious.
Bugging and tapping.
Completely unbelievable.
About making sure you surprise them. And they don't surprise you.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for all of your kind comments on my last video. It was the first time I have done anything like that, and I'm very surprised how well it was received. Believe it or not, that short video took me all day to make, and since I think it will be fun to include more cinematic edits like that, I will try to put a new one out every week or so. Now on to the new video. I haven't taken too many questions lately from the community, and I have seen a few that stretch a little further than most, so let's try to sort them out. Oh, and I just got a message from a fan that lives in Belfast confirming a huge spoiler, so if you want to see that, just stick through to the end, and of course I will warn you before it comes up. Okay, Jim Bolby says, not a comment about any of your videos in particular, rather when reading the Song of Ice and Fire books, I usually picture the age of most of the characters, especially the kids, as older than stated, based on their actions. The ages in the TV show were consistent with my impressions from the books, rather than stated age. I reconciled this by assuming the number of days in a year was about 450, give or take. This is a different planet than Earth, and so a different year length should be expected. I'd love to see your thoughts on this. Great question. To be honest, this is one of the things I haven't thought much about, and I think it's because we really have no idea what kind of world this story takes place in. So far, we have the maps of the known world, mostly just Westeros and Essos. However, we are aware of other islands and just a little bit of the other continents that surround the main two. I actually made a video about a continent south of Essos called Sothorios. It has a lot of rumors about insane creatures and indigenous people that inhabit the land. To speak on the number of days in each year, I am not sure. There are long winters and long summers. I've heard a few people say that they think the planet actually is inside out, and it apparently explains the weird season patterns. I won't even begin to try to explain how it works because honestly it's difficult to understand myself. I would say though, if I had to guess, that the days in a year is relatively close to our planet, because although it is a fantasy series, the characters seem to resemble their age. Except of course for all of the crazy things that young children do in this story. Those things make the characters seem a little bit more mature. Plus, if the average child grew up in Westeros, they would probably mature really fast. Also, for the most part, the actors that portray some of the roles are much older than their characters. Like Jojen Reed, for example, is 14 years old in 300 AC, which is the last year in the books up until this point. And the actor that plays him is currently 26 years old. Crazy, right? I remember finding out his age from an article comparing him to the actor that plays the Mountain, who is only a year older than him. That's just insane to me. Speaking of the Reeds, I came across a question asking, where the hell is Howland Reed? I am certain he will descend like a plague from God. There is no way that he sent Jojen to die while he feasts on frogs and plays cribbage in the crag. Okay, this is one of the looming questions hopefully to be answered in Season 7. If you remember, Howland Reed was with Ned Stark at the Tower of Joy, and he's pretty much the only person that we know of who for sure knows who the true identity of Jon Snow is. And of course Bran Stark, but that's just from a vision. As far as we know, Howland Reed is ruling the Neck where House Reed resides. He is a Cronogman, and in the books they are described as very different people than the rest of Westeros. They eat frogs, they are very short, and they have features that resemble the children of the forest. Many say that the people of the Neck and the children of the forest interbred their races generations back. Either way, we have a shot at seeing Howland Reed in Season 7 as Jon gathers more of the Stark loyalists. And finally, here comes the huge spoiler for Season 7. Go ahead and check out one of my other videos if you do not wish to ruin a huge potential Season 7 surprise. Okay, so a few days back, Watchers on the Wall reported that the actor who played Gendry, Joe Dempsey, was caught at the airport in Belfast. Of course, the Game of Thrones crew has been known to fly out previous actors for dinner parties, marketing events, and even maybe just to confuse fans. Well, today I had a subscriber message me about meeting and talking with Joe Dempsey near a festival in Belfast. Hi, my name is Adam and I am from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Tonight I was in the city for a festival/culture evening, which was citywide. On a side street, I met Joe Dempsey standing alone against the wall wearing a hat and hoodie. I chatted to him for a few minutes and talked about Game of Thrones. During the conversation, he mentioned how cool it was to be back in the show. I asked for a picture with him and he said he was not allowed to, as it is a secret that he is in the city filming. As soon as I walked away, I knew I had to message your channel. So apparently Adam met Joe Dempsey, who was hanging out low profile and segregated from the festivities. The actor didn't want to take photos, obviously because Game of Thrones does not like to give away too many spoilers. As for the source, our friend Adam, who had this experience, I believe is probably telling the truth. I mean, we did just see Joe Dempsey a couple days ago at the airport, so I have a feeling that he's being pretty honest with me. So thanks again for the info, Adam. What do you guys think? What is Gendry's role next season if he really is going to reappear in the show? Let me know in the comments. I hope you liked the video. I appreciate all the support, everyone. Have a great day, take care, and I will see you tomorrow.
Ever since I was young, I always told myself, I'm going to go to college, and given that that moment coming up is completely blowing me away.
I'm very proud of him. I want him to go out there and start his adventure. But there's a little part that's kind of sad because I'm going to miss him.
Going out to college is making me pretty nervous. My whole life's about to change. I'm really going to miss my grandma. She basically raised me since the age of 13. She put me through high school. She gave me a life and a future.
I am so excited for him because I know that he'll do well. It's sad for me. I didn't know these 5 years would go so fast.
Ever since my mom got sick, it's been real tough financially on the family, on her. I'm leaving to Lubbock, Texas on my own. We don't really have the funds to get everybody out there and help.
As a parent, you want to be with them when they're moving in, see where they're going to be, how their environment is. It's one of those things that I think every parent would want to see.
My grandma can't make it to Texas type. She can't do a 500-mile journey like that anymore.
I would like to be there for move-in day to support Eric, give him a little feeling somebody's there for him.
It's kind of tough that she won't be there to say goodbye when I move in. She's like a mother to me. When I first arrived on campus, almost every other kid had their parent there or other family member like brother or sister, and I'm just alone.
Coming here without anybody and seeing everybody with somebody, that was the first time I've ever really felt super homesick. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't.
Holidays, has political correctness gone too far? Take a look at this. Hallmark's new holiday sweater ornament uses a lyric from Deck the Halls. Don we now our fun apparel. They have used the word fun to replace the word gay. Critics are calling the move homophobic. Hallmark has apologized, saying it never intended to offend anyone. Is this political correctness gone too far?
Well, doesn't Hallmark make cards? That's the problem they got into trouble with.
Yeah, Kevin?
Right.
It doesn't deserve a comment.
It doesn't?
It's so bizarre, stupid.
What do you guys think about political correctness?
What do you think, Morgan? Is this political correctness gone too far?
Yeah. I mean, we have a tendency to do that anyway. I mean, you get politically correct. Stuff happened that you don't want to happen. I all of a sudden became an African. Political correctness, African American. I'm not African. I'm American. I'm not African. I'm American. I'm not African.
Lucas. This is my dad, Frank Lucas, and shout out to Vlad TV. Thanks for setting up this interview.
Me and Melvin Cohen were good friends. We were good friends. We did a lot of business together. Of course, it was not a legal business, but we did a lot of business together. And I was sorry to see what happened to him. That shocked the hell out of me. And the guy who did it, I'm glad he got what he got. Okay, so.
And I know Melvin used to come to your club, the turntable, a lot.
Yes, he did. He come there all the time. Melvin was like a lady man. Yeah, he come there all the time. He come to my club all the time. Yes, he did.
Can you say the name of your club?
The Lord Price Turntable, 52nd and Broadway. I met Sean Cohen. I met him when I was a little boy. He used to come over to my house. His daddy used to bring him over my house. He used to come see me on various businesses, and he used to bring him over my house from time to time. But I met Sean about a year ago. It's been a little better than a year ago. He heard I know the father. He wanted me to tell him about the father, so I come over and I told him something about the father. But I didn't give him the whole story because it impressed me. He just asked me casual, and I told him casual, but it impressed me. I would have told him the whole story.
About his family?
Yeah, well, all I know, but I didn't do that because it's impressive. If you act like you really want to know, but you act like it was just another thing, so I had to go.
Right, and you know that Sean Combs not as tough because he did, right?
No, I know my Melvin's son. I didn't know his name. I know Melvin's son. I didn't know his name.
I'm on that good.
Researchers at Columbia University looked into states that legalize marijuana for...
Night gathers. And now my...
It's great honor serving in the Night's Watch.
What up? Got four viewers.
Thousands of years.
Once you subscribe to my page, would you please? Thank you very much.
You might not have my name.
Any requests?
You have my blood.
Any games y'all want to see me play? About to get on this Madden soon. Some Madden.
Where have you been?
What's duty? With Sam?
Ah, Prince Pork Chop. Where is it?
He wasn't hungry.
Impossible.
So enough. Sam's no different from the rest of us. There's no place for him in the world, so he's come here. You're not going to hurt him in the training yard anymore.
You are in love, Lord Snow. You girls can do as you please.
If the day should ever come when your Lord Father was forced to choose between honor on the one hand and those he loves on the other, what would he do?
He'd do whatever was right, no matter what.
And Lord Stark is one man in 10,000. Most of us are not so strong. What is honor compared to a woman's love? And what is duty against the feel of a newborn son in your arms?
Yours was, Alina? No, you told me it was, Meryl? Your bastard's mother.
Kill it.
Wiley. It'd been a rare wench to make Lord Eddard Stark forget his honour.
Lord Eddard
Never
Stark.
told me what she looked like.
Nor will I.
Nor will I.
Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Perhaps the place starts with.
Yes, he chose not to kidnap that rape.
Lord Stark.
I look for you on the Trident.
What about me?
Friends and usurper livening the ground if we have been. Mad King is dead. Rhaegar lies beneath the ground. Why weren't you there to protect your prince?
Our prince wanted us here.
Where's my sister?
On the 2nd of July, 1706, in Mbamza, Congo, the city of the Congo Kingdom, a 22-year-old young woman was burned alive for the revolution against slavery. Her name is Kimpabita, the mother of the African Revolution.
Qui s'est sacrifié pour ses idées, pour son peuple, et qui était une espèce de porte-flambeau de la liberté.
C'est très moderne en fait, l'image de Kimpabita est très moderne, parce qu'encore une fois, je dirais que chaque génération, il y aura toujours des personnes.
Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will punish all them which are circumcised with the uncircumcised, Egypt and Judah and Edom, and the children of...
A voice message which says, now concentrate, and then now relax, and this alternates.
And Ned Stark's bastard, aren't you?
Bastards can rise high in the world. Like your half-brother. Born a bastard of Lucifer. Lying awake from
Farewell, Stark. And you, Stark.
Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor. It can never be used to hurt.
Is my mother alive? Does she know about where I am, where I'm going? She cared.
The day should ever come when your Lord Father was forced to choose between honor on the one hand and those he loves on the other. What would he do? What is honor compared to a woman's love?